Hey, it's Musicals with Cheese. Now let's get on to it. I got a question for you. What do we want out of revivals of Broadway shows? Now, I know that's a very broad question that can really mean anything, and it really depends on the show, but I'm thinking on a broad spectrum, what are we looking for when it comes to a revival of a Broadway show? And I know that sounds like a setup for a long video essay type thing where I describe what exactly the general public has liked about Broadway shows, but honestly, I'm asking you. I don't have an answer to this question, and I'm curious. What, as a culture, do we want when we see a revival of a Broadway show? I'm framing this around the more recent production of Oklahoma, which is completely different than any other version of Oklahoma. It is directed by Daniel Fish, who brings this invigorated, new sexual light to it, where people will say we're in love means something completely different. There is this new homoerotic tension between Judd and Curly. As well, Ally Stoker plays Adol Annie, and it is a completely new dynamic since she is paraplegic. As well, for the Dream Ballet, they have Gabrielle Hamilton doing a single individual ballet, and it's very strange, very interesting, and very theatrical. A totally novel theatrical experience from the ground up. And my personal opinions on this is something positive. I think it's great. I love when creators take old work and make it brand new for a new audience so that they can fall in love with the work in a brand new way. This is how you get kids into the theater. Take old work and make it interesting to a modern generation. And a lot of people just want to see the old Oklahoma that had John Raitt and Shirley Jones and all of them. They just want to watch that again. And I respect that as well. But honestly, the show hasn't aged well. And it only really works in community theaters and college performances. It will never work on a Broadway stage in the same format ever again. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to just get over that. Dry your tears now. Oklahoma, in its previous form, is gone from a Broadway stage, more or less, until we get like crazy nostalgic 50 years down the road and just want to replicate everything we did 100 years ago. So, that is where that stands. Judging by my Facebook profile and just looking through the newsfeed, a lot of people think that this is a travesty toward the original work, and say if they wanted to do something new theatrically, why not write their own show? And I've been pondering this for a good couple of weeks since I've read it. But then comes the question, should we keep doing Oklahoma the same way we've been doing it for the last 70 years, or should we change it? Or put more simply, what is the point of a revival if we're not changing things? Take another musical, My Fair Lady, which basically does beat for beat what every other production of My Fair Lady has done in the past. However, there is the slight element at the end that they changed that completely changes the moral of the entire story. Is that a change that we approve because it's small, or how do we quantify these changes? What are we looking for from a Broadway revival? Are we looking for more of the same? Are we looking for a beat-for-beat remake of what we had previously in the last revival? Or is there room for reinvention? And if there is room for reinvention, how much is too much and how much is too little? And a lot of people are bringing up disrespect for the authors and author's intent and all that nonsense, but why don't we ever bring up author's intent when we do Shakespeare? Shakespeare has been reinterpreted in 1,000 different locations, 1,000 different ideas. In fact, Shakespeare is so reinvented that it's groundbreaking when you actually play Shakespeare in the time that it's taking place. I mean, seriously, when was the last time we saw any production of Macbeth that actually took place in Scotland? And these same people that were complaining about radical theatricality with this new Oklahoma production honestly did not say a damn thing when Michael Arden did his incredible reinterpretation of Spring Awakening with The Deaf West, which was completely different and completely groundbreaking, as well as telling the story in a way that's completely new. He discovered a new way to tell the story through a theatrical framing device of sign language. If we don't experiment with old material, how are we going to find new stories to tell through that material? If we want our stories to live on, they have to change with the time. They have to be updated. They have to be modern. It has to stand up to the Spring Awakenings, the Beetlejuices, the Tootsies that are currently playing aside it. So we have to hold it to the same standard. Unless we do that, musical theater is gonna die. And I know that it's a rough pill to swallow, but it's a pill that we have to take either way. But then again, to play the devil's advocate to myself, I do understand the other side. If we're changing the intention so far that it isn't even a shadow of what the intention was, are we even putting on the same show anymore? If we have a production of Annie and it all goes the same way, except in the final scene she wakes up from a dream and she's suddenly back in the orphanage, does that change the entire content of Annie? And are we still telling the same story, or are we just telling a new interpretation that's like gritty and dark? which is not a question we really want to think about when we're talking about Little Orphan Annie the musical. So I completely understand that side too, but also at least be a little open-minded. Look at the great things that we're able to get through revivals and big changes with revivals. Big directors coming in and changing up old material is how we get wonderful creations. Look at Baz Luhrmann. We wouldn't have his incredible take on Moulin Rouge and The Great Gatsby if he didn't reinterpret La Boheme into his own style. Or even more recently, Sam Mendes' interpretation of Cabaret with Alan Cumming, which reinvents the entire story in a dark, gritty, and sexual way that was praised by literally everyone. I don't think anyone has a negative thing to say about Sam Mendes' revival. In fact, that revival was revived in 2014. Revivals are a good thing, and change is a good thing. I see all this as an inherent issue with musical theater, that snobbery, and I'm better than you. And your opinion is less valid because your favorite musical is Wicked, or you've never heard of this musical, or you only like musical theater because of Be More Chill, and so on and so on. I hate the snobbery. Just appreciate all theater, and if someone likes something that you don't particularly like, don't shit on them for it. And if someone is doing something brand new that's just not for you, maybe don't call it a travesty. Maybe have a little bit more of an open mind when you're seeing theater and people taking chances in theater. Because you know what? It could be a lot worse. They could just be putting Frozen on Broadway again or Tarzan on Broadway again. We can't let Disney just remake its films and that's what Broadway is. We need change and we need adaptations and we need brand new things. And I can hear your reaction now, then just write a brand new musical, but that is even harder than you would even expect. I mean, look at folks like Joe Iconis, who started with nothing, just adapting this book that nobody read, into a musical, and then the kids found it and made its way to Broadway, and what do the Broadway critics do? They tear it down as much as they can because it does not fit the bubble that they want it to fit in. Yeah, it's not perfect, but come on, there is something there, there's something innovative, it tapped into a generation that you don't understand, and maybe give that a bit of the benefit of the doubt before you just call it trash. Or before you walk out at intermission, Mr. Sondheim. Wow, I got a little bit off track there, didn't I? Sorry, Sondheim, I take that back. You can walk out of anywhere, wherever. I know those adult diapers get really uncomfortable after you've been sitting in yourself for a while. So you can go home. Yeah, you can go home. I know you're not that invested in the script plot, and you are probably out of it as soon as they rhymed gate and masturbator. Yeah, I get it, but stop being such a snob, dude. All right, where was I? All right, revivals. So, what revivals do you think work the best, and how do you think we should do revivals? Should we do a minimalist change revival, much like the She Loves Me, where all the changes are just to the visuals? Should we do a complete ground-up revival, quite similar to Hedwig and the Angry Inch and Assassins? Or should we do something closer to this new Oklahoma and the Spring and Awakening revival, where we do something completely brand new, completely reinvent theatricality, and change the entire game with it? Should we try to go into a revival of a Broadway show as if it is a brand new novel show, or should we pay respect to what came before it in as many ways as we possibly can? That is the question I am proposing to all of you out there, because I don't have an answer for it. I don't even know if I have a preference for it. Honestly, I just want to see what any creators out there can do with old material and new material and see how it reflects on a stage, because honestly, I'm just so happy that musical theater continues to live and thrive. And I want everyone I know to join in on the fun that I have in its consumption. More or less, I don't care what you enjoy, how you enjoy it, or whether it's new or old. I'm just glad that you're here joining me. And as one can tell from the podcast Musicals with Cheese, all I want to do is get more people into musical theater as much as I possibly can. So that is my goal. And as this Oklahoma show gets one more person into musical theater that wasn't into it previously, it will have done a fantastic job, and I am happy for its existence. And all the people out there that are shitting on it just because it's not your grandpa's Oklahoma, you have a valid point and a reason to believe that. Yeah, I bet you thought I was going to say the F word, didn't you? But I didn't. All right. Thank you guys for watching. We currently have a brand new podcast out right now. We're guesting with Christy Esterly, and we're talking about Hadestown. So you gotta just go click in the description. Also, please hit subscribe, hit that bell icon and all that so that you get notifications every time we post. We're gonna be posting once a week, every Friday. Alongside that, there will be a podcast episode posted. So when there's a video, there's a podcast. All right, we'll see you next time on Musicals with Cheese.